Huge weapon balancing patch with Season 2 rolled out. What are the top 5 long-range beamers right now? Heads up, the balancing wasn't as big as we expected it to be. Yes, the RPK got nerfed damage-wise, but essentially it went from a 700 milliseconds time to kill around 800, 900 somewhere. So it's still absolutely top tier because nothing got changed about the recoil. That being said though, due to the bonus weapon tuning that is now available, some multipliers are multiplying even harder and some downsides are less downsidey. Other guns feel absolutely amazing. Let me present them with all-in-one tuning screenshots included. Let's begin with our personal favorite, the HCR. Very good time to kill, and with the bonus tuning, even more accurate. It does have a 60 round mag. You can actually go down to a 42 if you want to, or 100, but both make no sense. Because the 60 round mag, click bang, super fast reload like the RPK. Very good thing second is high velocity rounds. Tuning towards bullet velocity has enough bullet velocity together with recoil smoothness to shoot long range. That's over 1,000 meters per second now. You don't need a bonus velocity attachment on barrel. We put on the VLK optic and tune this towards far and aim down sight speed. And then we can already put on the Coom, and the Coom does aiming stability and recoil steadiness, 7-8% recoil control, and you can go for even more recoil stabilization for the visual plus aiming stability. Now, if we're shooting this gun away, it is already very smooth, but on the distance, you notice it going a little bit around. And that's when you look at the recoil, is because the gun goes to the left, and then a wee bit to the right, and then to the left, and to the right. But that can easily be controlled. We need a muzzle that does horizontal, but also vertical recoil control. And for that, we're going to choose the Castle Cone with 14 and 19%, and tune this to its gun kick control, 25, and recoil stabilization. Then on top of that, we'll add an under barrel. Yes, we don't need the barrel. We don't need the stock, anything. Last but not least, we can either add an under barrel for more recoil stabilization or a barrel with the F-Tech Hornet for more recoil control. That would be 11%. It's kind of like a little bit choose your poison here. You can get a wee bit more aim down side speed, and you can also go for the recoil steadiness. Now, choose your poison. If you feel like your gun wibble wobbles too much, if you don't like the way how it feels here, then put the F-Tech Hornet off and actually put the Edge Grip or the Ripper on, because that also gives you recoil stabilization and makes the whole gun just feel better when you're shooting it. So here, in comparison, it's the same recoil, but it feels less bouncy in my eyes, personally. And when you're just shooting it away now, you notice it is the same as it was before, but without the hardcore left and right bibbity bounce, and it feels very nice and accurate to shoot on the range. That one gets followed up by the M13B, which just received a buff with the weapon updates. Very important, you need the 60 round mag, and you do need the high velocity rounds, and tune that to its bullet velocity. Yes, we need every single inch smidge of bullet velocity and a recoil smoothness. That one gets added here either with the AMOP side or with the VLK. I do like that the gun has a relative low recoil, and I personally can use the VLK because I really don't like the minimal magnification of the AMOP V side. But choose your poison here. 3 attachments in, you can do this, but on the range, you kind of feel like, oh, Jesus. The gun is a little bit all over the place. And if you're shooting this into the wall, you notice, well, the recoil is more or less straight up, but something feels a wee bit weird on range. Now for the M13, we need a muzzle because we only have 734 milliseconds bullet velocity right now, and we need roughly 1,000. And that's where the Harbinger D20 comes in. This suppressor does 220 meters per second plus and still provides 3 and 3% recoil control. Especially, you can tune this towards recoil smoothness to make the M13 feel a wee bit better, and then some more bullet velocity because, again, we want to tune out the maximum in bullet velocity. So we have now, with the bonus tuning of bullet velocity, roughly 1,000 meters per second and can add more recoil control. And that's where the barrel could provide 7 and 7% with a little bit of bullet velocity, or you could go for a lock grip precision, for example, which does the same recoil control, and you can tune this to its hip walking speed and aim down sight speed. Now, that would be with the lock grip. If you feel like you're wobbling a little bit too much in the distance, You can replace the lock grip. Again, the gun just goes more or less straight up. You can replace the lock grip through a recoil stabilization grip, again, after grip or edge, to make the gun wibble wobble less around and make it feel more stable, because that's literally what recoil stabilization does for you. It has 4% recoil control, so less noticeable, but this just feels so much better than the lock grip and gives you an absolute laser beam. Now, as a second LMG, it could be the Rap Age, could be the Icarus, but I'm actually going to recommend the Sakin. The Sakin is TTK wise with 736 milliseconds, just behind what the RPK used to be. And also together with high velocity rounds, and tune this to its even more bullet velocity plus recoil smoothness, you already have over 1,000 meters per second bullet velocity. So more than enough for long range beaming. To make it close to the RPK build that a lot of you love, I'm going to put on the AIM-OP V4 side here, doing this for far and aim down side speed. Now, just with high velocity, how do you feel already? A bit slower fire rate, and well, it goes a wee bit up and down. You don't have much recoil, as you notice, due to the fire rate. It feels like the sight is actually pulling it down and up and down and up. And that can be a very weird feeling when you're shooting. Like factual, the recoil is not there, but due to the gun shooting like up, down, how are you going to really keep it on the distance? It just feels plenty weird when you're actually doing that. The best way to deal with this is working on aiming stability and recoil stabilization, not actual very much recoil control, because if we shrink this even further down, it's going to pull only more vertically down to have this bounce even more pronounced. So what we want to do is we put the recoil control stock on, but tune this heavily towards aiming stability and a little bit of aim down side speed, because it doesn't hurt to be able to aim down side speed. Then for the underbarrel, we've called the Bruin Warrior LMG grip that does recoil steadiness and a recoil stabilization. And that gets tuned together for even more aiming idle stability and more recoil stabilization. Now, these two attachments already make this feel less of a bouncing around. You notice the sight is still going around, but it's essentially the up and down, up and down, up and down, again, that you just have standard in the sight. When your recoil is still very shrunken. And in order to take care of the very last bouncing around, I would ignore my earlier advice and actually put on the Tempest GH50, which does only vertical recoil control. Plenty weird, I know. Tuning this to its gun kick control and recoil stabilization. But extensive testing, while recording this, has shown that this just makes the gun feel very good. To be on point, on point, on point, on point. This just feels like the RPK again. Due to the vertical being so extreme on the Tempest, you essentially shrink down your recoil pattern and the up and down bounce the gun has so much that you don't feel it anymore. Now, obviously, we have the ISO Hemlock as a new gun as well. And that one has a 45 round mag for long range beaming. And I noticed with a VLK optic, even the base recoil is extremely low. Sadly, I can't tune this because I'm only level 6 out of 27. So we'll try our best here, adding the high velocity rounds for the bonus of bullet velocity, and would tune this for even more. Putting this into the firing range just to see what we have. And the gun pulls straight to the right. And you notice it actually doesn't have an up and down bounce. It only does have a left and right bounce. Like if you're shooting this, look at the side. This one bounces only left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right, with a minimal vertical. And that's where the Ixton Havoc shines the most, with 22% horizontal recoil and 11% vertical. Now, I don't have the recoil control values of the barrels, but I would assume that the fielder can do very good. But if you feel like your gun is bouncing a wee bit too much, you're probably going to go for the edge grip. Realistically, we'll need the fielder for the bonus of bullet velocity. And pulling that into the firing range and then shooting it away, you have quite the laser beam to keep on. Now, I wish I could tune this to make this even better, because the tuning is really what's going to squeeze the recoil together, that it then just feels perfect on range. But this is already how I feel very good with the ISO Hemlock. Probably going to need the exact bullet velocity values to know if high velocity might be enough in tune, or if I have to really play the barrel on top. And before you ask, but ponies, any of the battle rifles good now for single fire spamming? No. Also not for full auto, I'm sorry. I love the Lachman like everyone does. If you can't leave your hands off it because you're so deep in love with the Lachman 762, high velocity rounds, tune this for recoil smoothness, recoil steadiness, VLK optic for far and aim down side speed or aim OPV side, the Romeo barrel for damage range and recoil steadiness, with the Tempest GH50 for gun kick control and recoil stabilization. And then last but not least, you have the choice between the aiming stability recoil control stock or for more aiming stability. In this case, I usually go for the aiming idle stability and the bonus of aim down side speed, because you have 4% recoil control here, but it's also to keep the recoil variance nicely on spot. And if you're now having the reduced recoil, you have an okay gun you can shoot away with 20 bullets. Now, if you want to have the 50 bullets, put the stock off, put the 50 bullets on. Now, again, that being said, with those 50 bullets, you do have this kind of recoil, no matter what you do. If you find a better Lachman, tell me. And if you want to have more frames, especially increasing your 1 and 5% lows, check this video right away and reduce your stuttering.